because we don't want to take up anybody's time or waste it. And of course, on time as Harvard West Lakers are, right at 6 here, they drop in. Carol's here. Um, he's one of three panelists that we'll have tonight. But before I go into tonight's panel, I want to thank everyone for showing up. With unfortunately, we conflict with the sports panel event this evening, but you all are alum at this school. Like I've been working this job for 2 years. Like there's no time. Like you all are doing so much, and there's so much that's offered. Like there's just no time to have things. Um, Ryan is here. Ryan's giving us 15 good minutes because he's a busy guy and we appreciate that. Sadia should be here. Carl's got 45 for us, so that's great. Like I said, this call will be recorded, which is, of course, when most people watch these events. Um, that if you check the resource section on the platform, we have past calls, our upcoming events. Sandy is here. This is great. We're going to get started soon. Um, we have all of our past calls and our upcoming events, which includes we're going back to an overall career focus with psychology in graduate school, pathways for psych, pursuing a JD, pursuing an MBA, and then we have one more. This call is an employer information series panel where we focus on our alums and parents and members of our community at specific companies, and they can give us background and things of that nature. With that being, and then of course we got pursuing a JD, pursuing MBA at the end of the year, and that should be it for these panels. So I've taken up my 2 minutes. We've got our distinguished panelists that are here. Uh, Carl, Sandia, Ryan. I'm not sure if Ryan is still here. Ryan has to leave at 6:15, so we'll try to give him kind of sort of first priority for the first 15 minutes, and then we'll go into it. And then Carl, I know you got to leave at 6:45. You got 45 minutes for us, so that works too. But I don't see Ryan on the call. He was here and then he wasn't. So Carl, Sandy, you want to start with the introduction?
Sure, Carl, do you want to go first?
Go for it, please.
Okay, awesome. Hey, everyone. Well, good evening, and I'm excited to be here tonight. So is everyone a student, current student on the invite list for the most part?
Students and alumni.
Students and alumni. Okay. Okay, well, awesome. Well, my name is Sandhya. I'm a 2004 graduate of Harvard Westlake. And then my journey post high school, I went to Brown for my undergrad, where I also played varsity field hockey. I haven't said that in a long time, so that was fun. Post college, when I graduated, I joined the Teach for America program in New York, where I taught high school. And then after TFA, I went to business school at Northwestern, Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, where I received my MBA. And then post MBA, I went to work for one of the largest medical supply and hospital distributors right outside of Chicago. And then I was there for several years, and they are not only a distributor, but also they make and they private label a lot of medical supplies and devices. And so that was the part of the business I worked on. And then now, of course, I'm at Amazon, where I still work in healthcare, and I work on building new healthcare, primarily B2B solutions. So we work with hospitals, health systems, even like small doctors' offices, basically providers of all sizes. And we offer them B2B, like purchasing and procurement solutions. But there is like an area that I'm very focused on, and I'll probably get into more details on this later, but I'm very focused on our B2B to C capabilities, which I know I'm using a lot of acronyms right now, but essentially if if you break out, so there's the B2B capabilities that the division I work for, Amazon Business, that's like the core of our business. And then Amazon.com, like what you and I use for our fulfillment, like ordering to our houses, that's B2C. We're really working on combining all of that into one kind of powerful solution because no one really ships to the home as well as we do. Plus, we have these unique relationships with hospital providers. So a specific example that we're working on is supporting, for example, a hospital shipping supplies to a patient's home post-surgery. And so as soon as you're discharged, everything that you need to take care of yourself or your loved one is already at home. And then another use case is working with one of the largest health insurance providers so that their Medicare population can use their allotted benefit funds on various covered goods like Advil, bathroom safety, allergy medication. They can use those funds directly on an e-commerce platform that doesn't actually look like Amazon, but we power the whole thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I know we'll get into more details later, but great to be here. And thanks for listening.
Thank you, Sonia. Ryan, I see you're here. You got 15 good minutes for us, so you go next.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that I have to cut out early, but at least I wanted to dial in and say hello. And hopefully there'll be another one of these, and I'm happy to, participate. I'm Ryan Schuwager, class of 03. And yeah, in terms of my background, I've come from 15 years digital media strategy experience with stints in investment banking and management consulting, and also worked at Paramount Pictures in corporate strategy for a few years. I've been at Amazon for the past 7.5 years, leading the original movies strategy team and helping build our original movies business kind of from the ground up, and guiding its evolution and strategy through a big roller coaster ride of, starting as an independent prestige studio to acquiring MGM and now being one of the biggest global major movie studios. And it's been a really rewarding experience. I can really speak to the entrepreneurial culture and approach at Amazon. Just for context on what my team does, we lead all content strategy and release decisions for movies. So essentially we lead the greenlight process, all forecast valuations, analytics, strategic planning, any sort of slate planning as well, goal setting, postmortems. We're kind of the right-hand business team for the head of movies. So any kind of big business initiative or decision, and it's cross-functional with all of our global teams, we're the ones that kind of help lead and facilitate. And yeah, what's great about Amazon is 7.5 years feels like 17.5 years. And no year has been the same. I feel like I've had a different job for each of those years. That's kind of what Amazon is about, evolving and adapting. And if you have an idea, what's really rewarding about the culture there is you really can own it and run with it. And it's been a great experience. So, happy to answer any questions during my short stint here or, following this Zoom.
And Ryan, you were so professorial. You were like, you'll have office hours too that you were willing to that was so sweet. I was like, yes, that's great. Now we've got an Amazon veteran, an Amazon vet. Carl, what's up, man?
What's happening? Really good to be here. Carl Chrisman, class of 94. I left Amazon a couple months ago. Sandhya, I remember you and I connected 2021.
We need to catch up. We'll do that after this.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably the first thing that jumps out at me and maybe would jump out at all of you is sort of the size and breadth and variety of what Amazon does. And I joined Amazon. I sold my small startup to Amazon at the end of 2019. So I joined through acquisition. The business was a SaaS software business in global logistics, specifically customs brokerage. I joined an organization called Amazon Global Logistics, or AGL, that went through a couple different name changes throughout the period of time I was there. Led some product teams, did some corp dev, and then moved over to AWS to the startup organization at AWS. So got a very, very different perspective than the .com side of the business. So sort of on this call, you have people that have AWS experience, you have healthcare experience, and you have kind of the film and movie side of the business. So that's just a few of the organizations at Amazon. It's kind of one of the cool things about Amazon is there literally is something for everyone. I'm sure all of us can tell you a few of the good, bad, and the ugly, and it's not for everyone. And there are some things that are sort of unpleasant at times, and there are some things that are super rewarding as well. So yeah, excited to tell you sort of the inside look and since I'm no longer there, I may be even more real than my former colleagues here.
Now I'll say it like it is. No.
and that's
I will too.
All three of you, we appreciate you being here. And then just to give you an idea, we've got seventh graders. The call will be recorded. Everybody listens to it, but we'll have seventh graders on this call, and we'll have parents of like seventh grade, older alumni. So it's going to be a wide depth. So whenever you get into any industry jargon, anything like that, explanation would be appreciated. To Ryan's tune of being professors over the next 45 minutes to an hour, or at least 5 more minutes for you, Ryan. So let's get started. We talked about just the breadth of what Amazon is and what it covers. And you all, and the three of you all worked in very different parts of, this massive behemoth company. So what skills and attributes do you feel are most valued by Amazon and its employees? And you can determine the order.
Go ahead, Ryan. You're only here for a few minutes, so we'll prioritize you while you're here, man.
Oh yeah, thank you. I'd say, first of all, the leadership principles are very much not just something that's externally shared. It's very much internal into how the organization is aligned. And those leadership principles are brought up all the time. And that's what kind of represents what we're looking for. And just some highlights on those that I kind of focus on: earn trust. You have to be able to work cross-functionally and be a reliable cross-functional business partner with others, and be able to work with people who have different backgrounds than you, and be able to kind of consensus build and work with different teams effectively, and be someone who they can trust, rely on, and be a good partner, and be transparent and communicative, and really know how to work in a matrix siloed global organization like Amazon. So earning trust in such a cross-functional environment is critical. Diving deep. When you're having a claim in, where we have a doc writing culture where we write memos, there's 6-pagers instead of PowerPoint presentations. And within those, whenever you make a claim, you need to back it up with data. We have so much data at this company that you don't kind of ever leave a claim or a statement in isolation. It needs to be backed up with some sort of evidence. And diving deep into data analytics is, very important. But on top of that, not only just getting in depth on executing analysis, it's also thinking big, which is another leadership principle, which is really thinking about how can we do something better? How can we innovate? How can we constantly raise the bar for what we're doing? And that's another leadership principle: insist on the highest standards. These kind of come up all the time, and you can look them up. If you're ever interviewing at Amazon, the whole interview process revolves around leadership principles. So if you are interviewing, I know this will come up. Think of stories, positive and negative, associated with your experience and leadership principles, and you'll be in pretty good shape, especially if you have a lot of examples in your career history that represent the leadership principles. That is helpful. But really, it's about ownership, earning trust, diving deep, and being constantly motivated to raise the bar on what you're doing. You can't just be complacent. You can't just simply just keep a seat warm. It's really consistently trying to add value in new ways, and being comfortable with the uncomfortable, being comfortable with ambiguity, being comfortable, being kind of front and center to move and advance the business.
Thank you, Ryan. I know you got to go, so what
sorry about that.
I appreciate it. It's all good. Sandhya, Carl, whoever wants to go next.
Yeah. So I did over 300 interviews at Amazon in just over 4 years, and was what Amazon calls a bar raiser for the hiring process for at least a couple of those years. So got a really good inside peek and sort of training of the hiring process. I think Ryan hit it on the head on a few of those, and at the tail end of what he described, he talked about ambiguity. I think that's probably, aside from the leadership principles, which everyone can go out and read about, which is actually really fascinating. I think ambiguity is probably the number one thing that's important to be successful there. Just being really, really comfortable with the idea that things are going to be very different every day. And when you get hired at Amazon, it's unusual to stay in the same role for very long. In fact, it's encouraged to go out and find something different to do. And oftentimes that means in a completely different organization than you started in, you got hired in. So these skills are very cross-functional, and they translate well to other organizations as well when they get hired. I would also just kind of double down. I think Harvard Westlake does an incredible job at teaching how to be a great writer. And it's really, really important. It's a very almost bizarre culture. I remember the first meeting I went to in Seattle in 2019, and you sat in a big conference room, and at the time we were in person. It was all kind of pre-COVID stuff, and everyone got a big document. And it was a PR FAQ. It's a document that's very sort of widely understood at Amazon as the way you get things done. It's a press release, and then like a one-page press release, and then a 6-page document that comes after that, and then a bunch of pages of appendices that include data and all kinds of different things associated with it. And everyone sat in the room and read in silence for 20 minutes. And then there was a time check, like, how's everybody doing on reading the document? And generally the more senior people in the room will typically say, I need more time. And they'll continue to go through. And again, at the time it was all in person, so people were making notes. And then you go around and you make high-level comments on the documents, and then you drill in literally line by line. There's line items in line numbers in the document, and you go line by line and make comments about the document. The first one that I wrote, which was very shortly after I joined, I was told, quote unquote, every one of your adjectives is a defect. And it was jarring for sure, but it really sort of adjusts your writing style and changes it to be a very precise way of thinking. And the way of articulating your thoughts in a document in a business setting is something that I know I will carry on for the rest of my life and career for sure. So I think those are a couple of things I would add to that.
That's the most important thing I got out of law school, like writing and the way you write and how it completely changes. But that's another part. That's another panel. Sonia.
Yeah, I mean, what both Caro and Brian had said, they're both resonates with my experience. The one thing I'll add, on top of, you obviously learn to become an incredibly good communicator through writing, but you also want my second favorite leadership principle after earns trust, which was brought up earlier, is have backbone and disagree, commit. Because the other part about being in these like hyper intense, maybe even critical kind of doc reviews is feedback can be endless, and it's really up to you to decide, this is the purpose of this meeting. This is the goal I'm trying to achieve. You don't need to be commenting on X, Y, and Z, and I actually really need this outcome. And so you get really, really good at like perfecting those kind of cross-functional leadership skills, whether that's with people that are your same level and your peers, but more often, as Caro describes, going to be people levels and layers above you. And so that has been like a very big learning experience for me, is like really understanding what kind of leader I want to be. And how do I embody that and protect that in an environment that it has, it's like a very ingrained culture through our leadership principles. So it's definitely like a fantastic place to be pushed and to see kind of your limits and then put guardrails and boundaries around it to protect yourself and to keep your sanity.
And I guess that kind of sort of segues into the more personal, because you both did, in Carl's case did, in your case do different things, and you both got to Amazon kind of sort of in different ways. So this actually ends up being more about you, Carl, and you, Sandhya, who you all are, and your journey and your path. What type of educational background is popular for Amazon employees in your specific departments?
Yeah, so I have a slight, I'm one of the outliers. Carl's correct. Most people rotate a lot. I've actually been in the same division, somewhat of the same function, just slightly scope has gotten bigger and kind of expanded. And so that's really intentional because I was actually an industry hire versus kind of like a post MBA or post college. What's the term they use? Kind of like a varsity MVP kind of player that can kind of do all sorts of things. And so for me, so the org, but that being said, the org that I'm in has people of all education backgrounds, all functions. We have people in tech, we have people in business, we have people in sales, we have people in marketing, we have people in customer success and customer service. So it's great. Like functionally, there are a lot of options, and people have a wide range of kind of functional skills that they brought to the table, such as myself, where I had already worked for a large medical device distributor, and I specifically came to work for a team that was building medical device and medical supply capabilities. So I like actively sought out this role, and was like very deliberate about taking kind of the specific job. And then my goal is just to kind of stay in the healthcare ecosystem and healthcare supply chain. So I've kind of protected that. And there are other places to do that for sure within Amazon, whether it's like through the One Medical acquisition, which is recent, and then our Amazon Pharmacy capabilities. AWS has a massive healthcare and life sciences business as well. So there's plenty of healthcare within Amazon, but I was very focused on supply chain and could start to see myself kind of branching outside of that after I've been now in this role and at Amazon for 5 years. So wide range. It really comes down to the LPs that we talked about. You can Google them, the leadership principles. So like functionally, background wise, none of that is really relevant. It really comes down to like, can you thrive in the environment that Amazon creates with their culture and their leadership principles? And you find out. The interview process does a really good job of it, but you found out pretty quickly if this is a place where you're going to thrive or you're going to drown. And Amazon, it's not for everyone, but I've been here for 5 years now, and I don't know who said it, but that's a really long time. So some people kind of think of their stint at Amazon as a short while that you're going to really like dive in and build these skill sets and work on with a lot of different types of people and really push yourself. And then other people like me, like the pain and thrive in it. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's my take. And that's specifically, I don't think I mentioned this, but the division that I work for is called Amazon Business. And so within that, it truly does have like so many different functions.
Yeah. By the way, small plug, Amazon Business is one of the fastest growing organizations at Amazon. Incredibly successful and profitable business. I don't know about profitable.
It's profitable.
Okay. Incredibly successful part of the organization that actually plays really nicely with other parts of Amazon as well. So yeah, I guess what I would add to that is I think it really depends. Your question was like, what educational backgrounds translate well, and I think it really depends on sort of what at what stage in your career you are. And Sandhya described sort of functional fits and industry backgrounds, which I think are almost of paramount importance once you get into the later stages of your career at Amazon. So I was in the global logistics organization. I ran, after I finished the integration of my product for 2 years, ran the ocean freight product team for Amazon. You're not going to do that if you don't have a background in global logistics. Most of the people that I was around in that organization had deep backgrounds in global logistics. They also likely had an MBA. I do not. There was a profile of person that you were with. When I moved to AWS, to the startup organization, everyone had a background working in startups. Everyone had a background working in tech. The people that were engineers had engineering degrees. So, it really depends. I think as you start in like the earlier stage of your career, it's very common to have that post MBA intern person that comes back to the organization. And I think you kind of, the multi-tool player is the way you described it. I think that's a good way to describe it. And they sort of find their journey and find what they like. And then they get to move around and pick and choose what industries they might resonate with them. But as you progress, you kind of have to pick a lane at some point. And, you're not going to go from probably not going to go from pure play global logistics to, pharmacy, for example, unless you're in pharmacy and they need
Logistics.
to be probably the case.
So I totally agree with Caro. And this was advice. I don't know if this was just a trend when I was growing up. This was advice I was not given. When I was at Harvard Westlake and when I went to college, it was kind of like, oh, just do what's interesting to you. You'll figure it out later. I got kind of lucky because I ended up going to business school that kind of gave me a reset. But I think we over-index a lot in performance reviews or in assessing ourselves on the things we're not good at. And I think that's not necessarily the best strategy. I think you actually do really want to focus on the things you're good at. And then if you enjoy it, stay in the lane. Like just like Caro said, we have people in sales. They all have a deep sales background. We have people in tech. They're like they either, have engineering degrees or they've done product management. And like for myself, I picked healthcare and I picked supply chain. And I probably, for the most part, plan on sticking on that because that's where my expertise is. And that's how I become more valuable to the companies that I'm interested in. And then the power starts to shift where I get a little bit more control and autonomy about where I go work versus kind of seeking out and kind of chasing the right company. And so that happened, but like Caro's right, that happens a little bit later in your career. And we're a little bit older. I'm post MBA, like late 30s, have kids, that kind of thing. And so earlier in your career, though, like you don't have to hyper fixate on this, but it is something to keep a pulse on because you could end up feeling a little distracted if you don't have like either an industry, a function, or some sort of like core skill set that you can tie to that creates the value to the employer. And they're like, well, this person, they're going to be able to jump on board and they already have either experience in this, they have an expertise, their onboarding is going to be shorter, and they're going to bring something from like an external experience that's going to make them very, very valuable to us. So, yeah.
Sandhya, that sounds like colleges today. You got to know what it is that you're doing.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's interesting to know. That was not the case for me.
It's completely changed. It's kind of sort of why I exist. You got to have a profile now going into college. If you say you're going to be an engineer, what are your engineering experiences? What are your engineering internships? What does your transcript look like engineering wise? And so
can I say one thing though? Because this is important, and it's good to know that this is the shifting trend. And I'm going to say something that might seem contradictory to everything I just said up until this point, but I think it's worth it and it's important. I think, yes, focus on your career, focus on doing all the right things, but don't underestimate like picking an experience that's not the norm. I did this when I did Teach for America. It wasn't I didn't plan on being a teacher long term. It was definitely I knew it was gonna be short term, but there's just something completely unparalleled to just basically being accepted as an outsider into a world that you don't have access to. The people, the culture, the families, that's rare. And so if you have an opportunity to do that, like take it. And a lot of that's going to happen right post college. There's Teach for America, there's AmeriCorps, there's a Peace Corps, there's tons of programs out there. It's completely changed how I think about everything. Like truly, truly, truly. I know that sounds sensational, but it's not. And if I hadn't had that experience, I'd be a completely different person. So I do want to say that. I know we're really focused on kind of career and making the right decisions, but don't underestimate having those experiences and prioritizing them, especially when you have that flexibility. So I know that's really not the focus here, but I'm glad to talk about my experience doing something like Teach for America. I think it's very, very important.
That's okay. It's well said. It kind of transitions into the next question. Both of you have dynamic backgrounds, right? And you painted a picture because we talked about the skills and kind of sort of the educational background / professional focus of people in your departments, or, were you focused in Amazon, what they were doing? So we kind of sort of have a vision of this dynamic place with all of these dynamic people. So what is the organizational culture like at Amazon, and how does it compare to, say, the company you ran, Carl, and what its culture was like, or the medical supply, the large medical supply, healthcare device company you work for, Sonny, and its culture? Like, what is the organizational culture of Amazon?
Yeah. So for me, it was culture shock. And then became sort of the norm after almost 5 years. But I'd never worked for a large organization ever. I hadn't had a boss for 17 years. I had run my own businesses and had startups for basically the entirety of my career. And so, coming into a company of any size and scale was going to be unique and different. And then coming into Amazon in particular was extraordinarily unique and different. It has very much, when you have, this is true across all large organizations. So, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and there's a lot of process that takes place, and you seek to try and cut through that. And Amazon has a culture of taking action into your own hands and controlling your own destiny by writing things and by finding your own way to get things funded. I joke, and it's not really a joke, but I will tell you, I think it's easier oftentimes to find a venture capitalist to fund a project than it is to get Amazon to fund a project when you're inside the organization. I know because I've done both, and I'm quite certain that finding a VC to write a check to you can be easier than getting Amazon to fund a large new project. There's a lot about the rigor around things like I'll give you a couple specific examples that I think are really cool and that I'll kind of continue to take with me to the company I'm running now. MBRs, so monthly business reviews, and weekly business reviews. So there's specific cadences that sort of the whole company does, regardless of what organization you're at. And it kind of keeps things cohesive across, healthcare, MGM, global logistics, like doesn't matter. People are doing WBRs, and in those WBRs, those weekly business reviews, you're reporting certain metrics, and a lightweight document is being written. Those documents get aggregated into a monthly business review, which ultimately get elevated into a quarterly business review. And those all roll up into larger documents that get, ultimately go to, C-suite at Amazon, that see the most important aspects of the business. And it helps you with your precision of thought and the way that you articulate things through numbers in small levels and the WBRs that lead up to those larger ones that are more narrative driven. That's unique. There's also reviews of individuals. So you need to be rating people that work for you. If you're a manager at Amazon, managing people at Amazon comes with a very specific skill set. Some of those are managing people out of Amazon. And so, there's, I think all large organizations have this, but Amazon sort of still has a very old school GE mentality in that there is a specific number of people that need to get managed out of the company. And you have quotas essentially to hit. And then people won't really talk about that very often, but that's the reality. And so, you rate people and people get rated at different levels. It's, and so you rate people at a certain level, and if they get rated at a certain level, you are your hands are tied, and you have an HR business partner that holds managers' feet to the fire to ensure that person is put on a performance improvement plan and likely gets managed out of the company. And your job as a manager is to quite honestly manage them out of the company, not to help them come along the way, despite what other people might say. So, if you manage a large organization, the teams that you're managing have to come together and figure out what that percentage is. And it's sometimes a moving target, but generally in a range of how many people get managed out. So it can be very collaborative on one hand, and it can be very kind of cutthroat, dog eat dog on the other hand, because if you're in a team, you look around that room and you know someone's getting managed out and someone's getting the highest rating, and that highest rating comes with compensation benefits, and the lowest rating means you're going to be moving on pretty soon. So it's a unique culture in that respect, and then it's also a very unique culture, I think, in that cadence of writing and business review process as well. Those are kind of the two opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I for sure on the like the utilization of our data on a frequent basis was a huge culture shock for me. At my old company, we got like our monthly financials. No one looked, we looked at one KPI, and it was the one that we got our bonuses on, and then no one looked at anything else. And then maybe quarterly we would do a review, and then we would write a plan once a year that we never looked at again. In retrospect, that's like completely bizarre to me. and now we, if I can get metrics on almost every single aspect of what's making our business go up or down and sideways, with like I could look at it right now. I know exactly what happened yesterday. And so there's pros and cons with that. The pros are certainly you can make much quicker decisions. You know what's impacting your business. And you can like really drill into that, which is great because you're going to get asked a lot of questions to kind of defend why something's happening. And I felt culturally at my old company, it was kind of okay to either make something up or make like a kind of an assumption that wasn't really backed with too much data. Here, so I think someone said earlier, like you're not, your answer is going to have to be data backed, and it's going to be really quickly easy to snuff out if it's BS. So that to me is something that will stay with me for the rest of my career. And I'm sure, Caro, now that you've left, it's probably those mechanisms. It'd be pretty difficult, I think, to not have them. Like you'd feel like very malnourished. The only thing I'd add, like the performance review stuff, certainly I think it contributes to maybe some of like the outwardly cultural perspectives on Amazon being like super cutthroat and that kind of thing. But one way I've learned to live in this environment, Amazon's the type of company that will take as much as it can from you. So it's really on you to put the guardrails in place. And that took me a long time to learn. And I only really learned it once I came back from maternity leave and I had like a little baby. And I was like, this is completely unsustainable. And so I need to really like sit down and go through. I have a billion things that could possibly be done. You get to pick 3. And then you protect those 3. And then if something falls on you, because it's a very cross-functional organization, it's very matrixed. So you're going to be working with a lot of people that don't necessarily report to you or even on your immediate team. And if there's an ask of you and it's not one of those 3, politely say no. Like that's the only way it works. Otherwise, you will completely burn out and you'll quickly seek something else. Whether that's because you choose to leave or you end up at the bottom and then you get pipped out. So that was a really important lesson. I'm glad I learned it, even though it took me a little while. And I definitely, it's important to communicate that to people, no matter what age they are and how far they're in their careers.
I think that's a really, really good point. In addition to the cadences I described before, there are 2 cadences called OP1 and OP2. So they're planning cycles that occur every year, and again occur irrespective of if you're AWS. There's a very different culture, I would say, at AWS than I think every other part of the company, and I would say Ryan's organization as well in entertainment also has a different culture. They try and tie a lot of the same threads through AWS and through entertainment, but they do both maintain sort of fairly distinct cultures. Whereas, Amazon Business and Amazon Global Logistics and pharmacy and healthcare, like I would say are more closely aligned in culture. But OP1 and OP2 is when you do your goal planning and you kind of sign up for, amongst a lot of other planning aspects, goal planning is a big part of it. And you ultimately if you have big enough goals, you put your goals in this thing called Kingpin, is kind of the goal repository. and everyone's sort of fighting to get the highest level goal, so the S team
That's
goal.
team goal.
So it's kind of fun, right? You're like, I have an S team goal means like, that you got a deal
Like
going
Angie
on.
Jassie's looking at it.
Yeah, like someone, yeah, exactly. So there's like 12 people on the S team, means like people are looking at your S team goal. It's a big deal. So that's kind of like the trump card. Like people will come to you and they ask you for help, and people will, I think your point is like spot on, right? Like people are always pulling at you for help for something, from running an ocean team, you'll get people from every place all over the place wanting you to put this into your product, or can you help me with this? And naturally your inclination is to be like, yeah, of course I want to help you. Of course you want to help, but you can't do it. You have to be have this concept of like ruthlessly prioritizing, right? And like you just sort of use the goals as your North Star to ruthlessly prioritize what you do, because at the end, like that's all that matters. Like you could help everyone and not hit your goals and you didn't do well. So I think that's a really, really good point you made.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad it resonates. I figured it would.
We've got about originally 4 minutes left. We've got a question from the audience that wanted to focus on the entry level hiring process. Now, neither of you came in as entry level, so I'm not sure how much you can shed light on this, but anything you can share would be appreciated by members of the audience.
That's a good question. I know there's campus recruiting, which is probably the best option to pipeline through to Amazon. Cara, I don't know if this is true in AWS. We don't have a ton of really like post-college graduates. We have a lot of post-MBA, and then we got a lot of people who are a couple years out. Oh, perfect. Someone came in entry level. Can they speak to it?
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah, I'm happy to. I also would love to move into a question that I had in a minute, but yeah, I can talk a little bit. I'm Jared. I graduated Harvard Westlake back in 2018. So I just finished college last year. I'm also actually doing a teaching program like you, Sandhya.
Wonderful.
I've been living in Thailand for the past year doing that. So I definitely agree with that stuff that she was saying about getting out of the comfort zone and doing that. But in terms of getting entry level, I joined as a software engineer now 2 years ago. And the process on college campuses is honestly very like in your face. Like if you're going to any top 100 school, which you will, like they will be sort of like scavenging around campus on career day and stuff. So like you just basically go up to whatever representative is there on Amazon's behalf, or any of these tech companies that you're probably applying to, shake a hand, get a business card, and then like start grinding, whatever. Like if you're doing software engineering, which is what I did, like you're going to be grinding sort of coding stuff like leak code and stuff like that to get your skills up. If you're joining in one of the more business oriented arms of the organization, I can't speak to as much, but any sort of just like, entry level jobs are kind of the same everywhere in terms of admission. Like you just have to get your basic behavioral and technical interview skills up. And the process begins during your, if you're applying for diversity positions as soon as freshman year, if you're not applicable to diversity positions, then it's junior year. But that is sort of the timeline and overview of the application process. It's like a basic standard interview. If you get good marks, you'll get to come back, and if you don't, you don't.
Yeah, I would quickly add, I think it used to be where you would do like pod interviews. So we do like, interviews at scale, mass interviews, technical interviews. There's a couple different components of it, right? There's a coding component of it, and then there's still a non-technical component of it. So the interview process at Amazon gets fairly well synchronized across the board, irrespective of kind of the level you're coming in at. It's a really kind of, I think, a really great process called the STAR process. And I would encourage you to, Google it and read about it. There's a lot of documentation on it that will help you prepare for it. And essentially, it's a behavioral interview where you talk about sort of things that you've done in your past. When you're a student, you're going to be indexing more on things that you've done in your, in your college career or even in your high school career, things at Harvard Westlake that prepared you or whatever the case may be. As you get later along in your career, you're going to talk about things that you did in work settings that translate to whatever the question that's being asked is.
Jared, you had a question.
I did, yeah.
Uh,
It was directed at Sandhya. So earlier, Sandhya, you said that you talked about sort of like staying in a lane in order to build expertise, which is a thing that I understand. Obviously, like you're more valuable if you have the resume for it and you've done 10 years of whatever as opposed to one. But a question that I have as like, very fledgling in my career. I am still working at Amazon, even though I'm taking a bit of a leave right now. Like before I sort of gain any professional cred, if I'm to stay in my lane and sort of, shave my hedges in one part of the yard, like how do I suppose, remain like autonomous over my ultimate career path? How do I avoid what I've seen so far at Amazon in my path, which is being pigeonholed?
Yeah, it's a good question. And no, and it's a risk. It's for sure a risk. And I don't want to imply that staying in your lane is any indication that you want to gain less freedom. The whole goal, sorry, let me rephrase. My whole career goal is to gain more freedom. I'm not as lucky as Caro to run my own companies for 17 years. And so I'm like, I want to make the right decisions so that the power is in my hands. And so you're in an interesting spot since you have such a like specific skill set that's like very functionally tied to something that not, I mean, there are obviously a lot of software engineers at Amazon, but it's highly valued. And so I think there's a couple ways you can do it. And I've seen this with like whether you want to become a manager or like, even one of the principal engineers. Like we have this one guy at Amazon Business. He's been there for 8 years. He's our principal engineer. He knows everything. He is easily the most valuable person in the entire organization. He knows all our systems. He knows every skeleton in the closet. He knows all the interconnectivity because we use retail systems to make Amazon Business work. And so I think he's like an interesting extreme example because he's really mastered like this full deep expertise that really no one else can replicate. You could, if you interviewed him, he might feel like he's somewhat pigeonholed, but I don't think that's true because he can take like the skill sets that he's built and he could go to Microsoft. He could literally go to any tech company he wants, and like take another part, like another ownership over a different product category, different business unit, and do the exact same thing there. So I don't think you're pigeonholing yourself by building deep expertise. I think the problem becomes is if you don't like it. And then you feel like, well, I'm supposed to stay working. This is a horrible example, but I like been working on checkout for forever. I know everything about the checkout experience. That's where I need to stay. I don't think that's true. I truly think like when you think about transferring those skills to another part of the business, I think there is a lot more flexibility than you might think so right now. I'd say like when you think about your career, if there's function, industry, and location, you usually want to make one change at a time. If you're really, really being audacious, you could do two. You probably never want to do three at once. So that's kind of like a guardrail I use. I index on my industry, like I'm a healthcare expert. And then functionally, I've had a little bit of flexibility where similar to Caro, I've done product management, I've done corporate development, I've done business development, and so kind of build like a suite of services within that, but like stayed very focused on healthcare. And so just think about that for yourself as you build your career. You're super young, you have plenty to do. And don't ever feel pigeonholed. If you start to feel that, like start to rethink kind of your matrix of, all right, here are the things that I'm really good at. Here's the function, here's the industries I like. Here's where I want to live, especially now that that's super important since we have to go back to the office. And just keep like pushing yourself to like make that an exercise that you really truly revisit. Otherwise, kind of like at least my parents' generation, 30, 40 years pass and you kind of are in the same, you might be doing the same thing and you never really got to critically think, is this what I want to be doing? Cara, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of value in becoming a SME, a subject matter expert in a particular vertical. I also think that a lot of skills are transferable into other industries. And, I think that, I think that Satya would go to probably almost any other organization at Amazon and thrive. But you just really love healthcare. That's probably, my guess. And I don't know. I do think that there's something, obviously there's a counterpoint to this where being a generalist is also really, really interesting as well and attractive to opening you up to different opportunities as well. But you need to specialize in particular skills along the way, right? And so I think that your point was like the 3 vertical, that I like that. I've been in a bunch of different industries, right? They've all sort of come back and had some correlation. I shouldn't say that, but logistics was a thread. But I ran a connected consumer electronics business for 6 years. I ran an import distribution business. I ran a SaaS business. I'm now running another SaaS business in logistics. So like they're different businesses, but you find commonalities and threads. If you're good at go-to-market and sales and business development, you're going to be good at go-to-market, sales, and business development in whatever vertical you choose if you decide to go deep enough and learn about it as quickly as you can. And I think Amazon provides you that opportunity to do that. If you're a really good engineer, the threads of being a really good engineer are going to translate into any organization that you go into at Amazon. So just focus on becoming a really good engineer and, improving your skill sets and learning new languages and frameworks, and that will work for you wherever you go. I don't necessarily think you need to pick a lane. And even within engineering, you probably don't need to pick a lane from front end and back end. And, I prefer a slightly more generalist approach to it.
We allotted for 45 minutes. Carl and Sandhya were gracious enough to give us 52. They are both great stewards, not only for doing this, but also they are on the platform. All the profiles are all spiffed up and shiny. Some of you have already emailed me or messaged me on this call saying, where can we reach out to them? I'm like, they're on the platform with their email. So Carl, Sandhya, you're going to get a lot of, I heard you on this call, or I was on the call and inundated. So that's the curse of availing yourself to the Harvard Westlake community. So
look forward to it. Yes, reach out if you have more questions, you want to talk, just want to brainstorm. I'm happy to. Like, I take that very seriously. It's really important.
As everyone in Amazon says, +1.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Yeah,
absolutely.
of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys.
Thank everyone. This call will be recorded. It's going to be put on the platform. So it should be made available within 48 hours, I believe. Okay.
Wonderful.
Everybody
Have a good
enjoy
night.
it. Carl, Sandhya, thank you so very much. What a call. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure.
Take care.